Here we go. Business Buzz. We have Chris and Mike, service manager here at Ironside Cycles, downtown Kingman, Beale Street, and what's this crossover?
3rd Street.
3rd Street. Now, it opened just a couple weeks ago, but it's been in the planning phase for years. And so walk us through the journey of like, I have an idea. I think that a motorcycle repair restore place would do really well in Kingman, Arizona. It's an idea, and then you started to make it into reality. How'd that happen?
Well, I went to the American Motorcycle Institute in 2000, graduated in 2001 in Daytona Beach, Florida, and Harley, Ducati, and BMW. I've only done Harley Davidson professionally, but the goal was like someday have my own shop. And long way around, ended up in Arizona here, and Mike and I worked together for years at the Proving Grounds. We met in 2001. We spent more than 12 years together off and on doing research and development for the motor company, and we started talking about doing our own thing, and I drove around for a couple of years, looking at industrial spots, places to buy an existing building, and it's just locations weren't very good or the cost was too high, and we looked at places that had potential, but it wasn't safe for a motorcyclist to pull in if you didn't know we were there. Like if you're like we looked on Beale Street past the Dam Bar, there's an old building across from what's the diner?
Across from Rutherford's.
Oh, wow,
Diner.
okay.
And it had acreage, had good parking, but I was like, it just turns into 40 miles an hour, and if you don't know you're going to go there, and you're like, oh, brake, it's dangerous.
Well, then you find out the building, the cost of the building was really cheap.
Yeah.
But there was a reason.
There's full of asbestos.
There's always a catch.
Yeah, so there's always something.
So it went round and round and round.
Yeah, there was one real close to my house that at the time seemed high priced.
Yeah.
And then few years later, probably wasn't that high. But it wasn't this either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And Chris really stepped up on that one.
So we found this lot. It had one little cinder block building, and I'd driven by it, and there was an old faded banner that says for sale, and I was like, and there was a flashing red light on 3rd and Beale, and I thought the same thing for safety. It's like, or bikes, this is before all the street got done. I was like, cool. You're like, oh, I'm going to stop and pull in, and then found the owner, and they agreed to demolish the little building that was here, and started designing a building. And that was 2019. We bought it in July of 19. We bought the lot, and graph paper on my dining room table, like the lot's 75 by 125, and I thought, well, if we could do 50 by 100 and 2-story, and then I'd meet with Mike and say, what do you think of the layout, and where do we need outlets, and what do you think? And then COVID happened.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was
the wrench.
That was a hard hit.
Slowed everything down. The price literally more than doubled, but I was like, we're already started.
Yeah.
And then the city, I got wind they were going to change the zoning downtown, and I didn't realize it was pre the beautification of the street.
Right.
They didn't want another automotive repair, motorcycle repair. And I talked to the city, and met them with my architect, and we laid out the plans of what it was going to look like, and they thought it was great, but they're like, we are changing the zoning, and you're going to have 30 days to get your engineering in. That was a scramble. We had to completely find a steel company that had engineering in-house. And when they published the announcement that the zoning would no longer be C2 downtown, they said you got 60 days to get plans in. And I was the only project coming in, so I got to thank the city for that. And it was the 59th day at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Wow.
And they stamped it and said, go, do your thing.
Awesome.
So it was good.
It was the first sigh of relief.
Yeah, for sure.
At that point,
And then it was, let's get it built. And it was just a lot.
It's a process.
But now that it's finally together and the layout's the way I wanted it, and no, it's phenomenal. It's been a long journey.
Yeah, for sure. So what was the goal of Ironside Cycles? It's repair, restore, like what are your big pinnacle parts of what you want people to know?
To be able to work on vintage to modern Harley Davidsons.
To have our customers trust, is a big one.
It's a big investment for a lot of people.
Well, yeah.
It's like their baby.
And the quality of work helps out a lot with that. So that's one thing we're really concentrating on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing. So background-wise in motorcycle stuff, it was you guys meeting at the Proving Grounds. What was before that? I know you have a crazy story. You told me one time on the patio, and it's taken you to Alaska and back. So where did the passion for restoring and repairing vehicles, being mechanically inclined, start on either of you?
For me, it started when I was a kid. Bicycles and stuff, and I didn't have a dad around, so my poor mom had to deal with that. And
that must have been fun.
Well, and I lived in a neighborhood, and there was a lot of kids, and man, I got my first wrench and started going at it.
That's cool.
And then that went into dirt bikes, and I started riding dirt bikes when I was 7.
Wow.
And I never really had my own, but all my friends had them. So, you know, that's what we did.
Yeah.
And it was fun. Got into automotive for a while, and in '91 I started in the first bike shop in Needles.
Oh,
and
cool.
so I grew up in the area. And from there, had a few jobs in between, did some other stuff, but always worked on bikes on the side. And for a couple of years, me and the state got along pretty good. But then after that, it was there was a small shop in Bullhead called Arizona Performance, and they took me in, and I worked for them. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Worked at a shop in Vegas for a little while, and that ran like a dealership. I got onto Proving Grounds, and that's where Chris and I met. Like I moved with the Proving Grounds, so did Chris. They moved to Mesa for a little while, and then came back in '09 or 10. Must have been 10. And it was a long time coming, you know. I actually worked for Harley Davidson at the Proving Grounds for a while, and it was an amazing situation. And in between that, I was an instructor at MMI for a time, for 4 years. So Harley Davidson for me has taken me, 1, all over the world, and 2, different levels of motorcycle industry. It's pretty neat. But the passion for old motorcycles and all that stuff comes from the first things I ever worked on were old broke down shit.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Don't throw it out though.
No.
You know,
You don't throw
we're in
anything
a world
away.
now of like this use and abuse and throw it out. You guys were in the era, and like I was just at the end of the era. My dad instilled a lot of that in me of like, you know, use something, it's meant to be used for a certain period of time. You don't throw it out, you fix it. You know, I think that a lot of younger generations now, they're so used to just this world of like, if it stops working, instead of getting it fixed, you know, you used to be able to drive through a town and there's, I don't know how many appliance repair, TV repair, motorcycle repair, car repair, there's all these places. And now it's like, we'll just throw it out. And as that shifted, they started to not build things as well.
Yeah,
and so
they
now
didn't
we're
build
living
them
in
to
the
be
world.
rebuilt.
Right.
Exactly.
So
design obsolescence.
the motorcycle right here is
Yeah.
the engine's in 1960.
Oh,
It's
how
probably
cool is
been
that?
rebuilt
60
dozens
something
of
years.
times over all those years.
Okay.
And you can still get parts for them. There's still a
Yep.
huge amount of parts you can get for them.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's one of those things. A new bike for a cylinder and piston, you know,
Yeah.
they just, here's a kit, you know, cylinder piston kit, truck the other ones out. So these ones you can bore 6 different times if it's not totally wiped out.
Right.
But yeah, you can rebuild it 6 different times, and then you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about getting a new cylinder until then.
Yeah.
So like I said, it was really economical
Yeah.
for the bikes back in the
Oh my
day.
God, yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
What a crazy world. How did you get into this? Were you mechanically inclined as a kid? Like, are you taking apart the vacuum in the living room and trying to figure out where everything goes?
Well,
again?
my parents, when I was a kid in Alabama, everybody had dirt bikes and 3-wheelers, and my parents were like, nope, like you're not getting one of those.
Yeah.
And then one kid finally let me get on one, and all I had was a BMX bike, and luckily it was muddy because it was a 2-stroke Yamaha.
Yeah.
And I pinned the throttle, and I was just throwing mud, not going anywhere. I was like, well, this isn't very fast. And if it had hooked up, I would have hooked it, you know.
Right.
And loved it. And my parents were like, nope. My dad had a Royal Enfield, an English one. My dad was British. And he rode it for a year and was like, they're hot, they're dirty, don't want to do it anymore. And then my parents were, you know, as a young kid, getting car insurance is incredibly expensive. And they were like, well, until you can afford insurance, you can't get a car. And I was like, I looked up motorcycle insurance, and for some dumb reason, as a young man, 19, 20, motorcycle insurance was way cheaper than car insurance. And my rationale was, so if you hit another car with a bike, you're probably going to mess up. The car's going to have a dent.
Right.
So I could afford it.
Yeah.
And then I threw that on the parents' table, like, well, I'm buying a motorcycle because I can afford the insurance. They're like, what?
That's pretty smart.
Like, that
That's
was
a
the
smart
argument
angle.
you gave me is,
Yeah.
so you can afford insurance. I can afford bike insurance.
That's
about
pretty...
a 1978 KZ1000, bigger than what I wanted. But learned on that and rebuilt it at the top end anyway, messed it up, did it again. And when I graduated from art school in Virginia, I got a photography degree, Bachelor of Fine Arts. My dad was like, well, would you like me to buy you a high-end camera or fix the rust in your Land Cruiser because you're going to go on your own? And I was like, I want to go cross country on my motorcycle.
There you go.
He was like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing 10,000 miles in about 2.5 months.
Wow.
From Virginia to the Carolinas, New Orleans, Southern California, up to Seattle, Bellingham, back down through Idaho, New Mexico. And I thought if I could do this every 2 or 3 years, I would be in heaven.
Yeah.
I've never been able to do it again
Yeah.
at the time. I had to sell the bike when I moved to Alaska. I decided to get off the East Coast.
Yeah.
Went 1 year without a motorcycle and I was losing my mind. And of course the riding season's really short.
Yeah, I
up
bet.
there. I mean, you only got 5 months if you want to be wet in the beginning and cold and wet in the end.
Right.
But I started working in the Arctic and didn't want to keep doing that. And I got, friends of mine got a scholarship to MMI in Phoenix. And I had a free ticket and I flew down to Phoenix and toured MMI. And, but they didn't have Ducati or BMW at the time. And I got the info from AMI and I said, you know what, I'm going to drive to Daytona. And I drove from Seward, Alaska, 7,000 miles, the route I took to Daytona, Florida.
Dang, that's
And
a lot.
everybody's wearing sweaters in January and I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
And
It's like here.
but I love the Northwest, I love the Southwest. And the job placement through the school got me a job in Fort Mojave.
Oh, wow.
And I came out, I toured through Tucson. There was a Beamer dealer down there, Iron Horse BMW, and I met the owner and he was great, but he couldn't believe that a man could like Harley Davidsons and BMWs. And I had a Norton in my truck. He's like, you really are a masochist, aren't you? You know.
Right, yeah.
But I worked in Fort Mojave and then stumbled into the Proving Grounds, and it's just been a wild journey, but dropped anchor here. And
yeah. So there's like a thing they call the entrepreneurial bug, like that just bites you at some point, where you decide that you're done working for someone else, you want to work for yourself. Whether it's creative direction, whether it's just the way you feel when you accomplish something. What was it that happened that made you go from, a good job? People would consider working for corporations as a good
secure.
job.
Yeah,
what happened?
absolutely, it was secure. For me, from the first bike shop I worked in, most every mechanic has a dream when they start out to own their own shop.
So it's embedded in the beginning.
Yeah, and almost any industry.
Yeah, that's true.
You start out, you're like, man, I want to do this on my own someday.
Yeah.
And when I started thinking about it, this is what I thought about. And given that I started becoming a responsible adult later in my life, I got twins when I was 37, and I said, I feel for Chris. He's got a 3-year-old at home right now. And
test your age.
Oh yeah. So when Chris approached this to me, this was it. You know. And so my creative freedom and stuff, Chris gives me rein, and unless I'm messing something up, and he'll tell me right now. It's a great situation for both of us, I think.
Yeah, so that's your similar inspiration for you.
Well, when I graduated college, my main thing was I'm not going to dig a ditch and I'm not going to wash dishes. I'm going to use a camera, and this is old 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
And I survived for about 3.5 years with a camera, and I was rough.
That's original creativity. That's original content
but I had
creation.
No employees. It was just like, no, it's me doing my thing. And
just getting the shot, and you don't get to look at it. you got to wait.
I'm trying to sell photographs.
You can't be like, oh no, let's do another. Like you got to hope that was the right shot. So you got to get good at taking the first shot.
I was photographing whitewater rafters in Alaska, and you're trying to sell pictures to them they haven't seen.
Right.
And they're not going to see them for weeks.
And you can't fix them if they're not right. We live
there
in
was
a
a
weird
good photo
world
of that,
now where
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you can mess around with stuff.
Motor wine,
Back then, that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. So yeah.
But I was a one-man show, and I survived barely because I lived in my truck in the woods, you know.
Right.
And but I got that same drive to do this again. It's like, man, I remember you have to have the drive to push that hard to make it on your own.
You do.
And it's still there.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's a reason why a lot of people started in garages, you know, the Bezoses, the Googles of the world, like the Apples of the world. They started with like just really passionate, creative people. They worked for other people and they just felt like there was something beyond that. And that they didn't really have the means to do anything until there was a point that something happened, a breakthrough in what they were doing. But they started with really just kind of meager means, you know, and to see something from working for somebody else to now here we are, we're sitting in this, you know, multi-thousand square foot space with these really cool bikes that I know nothing about, all hanging out here. And you've only been open a couple weeks and you already have five different bikes that are four different bikes that are sitting on lifts, getting worked on is really cool. It's really exciting.
There's people have been expecting this because I was expecting this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, everything was slow, delays after delay.
But the people that have been waiting, they are thrilled. You know, the support has been so positive and amazing. And
what are some of the really specific? Because I'm not as inclined to this stuff. Are specific things that people are going to need to know that you guys can do? That once they see or hear what we're talking about, they're going to be like, oh, they can do that. Like start spitting off the stuff that you guys do that are really specific to here.
We'll be able to do most anything from complete engine rebuilds. The bread and butter, we got a tire station for doing tires. We got service equipment for doing straight servicing. If you want a quick oil change, we can do that. We live close to an interstate, so we'll get a lot of people, and you know, breaking down or need something done, or they wear a tire out on their trip, you know, or didn't plan. Hey, I went an extra 1,000 miles. My tire's not going to make it. Right. You know, take me home or whatever. Yep. We can do all that, and we leave room to fit that type of stuff in.
Oh, very cool.
Most of our customers know, you know, hey, we can call them up. Hey, man, I had a guy come in. Your bike's going to be delayed a day or so. You know, and back stuff up, and they're understanding. Yeah.
So some bikes you have they're not technically riding it every day. They just have some work they want done, and then you have the people that are like, hey, I need something done right away because I'm driving this today, tomorrow.
Travelers are going to be number one priority to hook them up. And the locals are like, well, I wasn't going cross country today. I understand.
Exactly.
You know, but they're jealous of the person who is, and they're like, yeah, come up. You know?
Yeah. You're giving them the itch to want to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But like I said, everything from early, what we call flathead 45s, and there's a alphabet soup that goes along with Harley Davidson. But
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
The acronym city.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Like, what is that?
But everything from, let's say, the mid to late 30s, all the way to current day.
Yeah. So there really isn't an issue that you wouldn't at least look at.
Right.
No. You know, there just might be some things maybe that you don't have the equipment for that is built into newer models. Like someone's cruising in on a Kawasaki Ninja 2025 and they're like, I want you to tune it up. I want 20 more horsepower. You're like, this isn't our gig.
Right. Yeah. Well, the big thing is with digital technology today, the bike has
computers and all that stuff. Yep.
There is specific things that the dealership has to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too.
Right. And then tuning and stuff like that, a lot of times a dyno is needed.
Yeah.
We have tuners that don't need a dyno, but someone's got to know what they're doing when they ride the bike, so it's an hour and a half or 2 hours of riding, which is no problem for me.
Right.
But
yeah,
in the same respect, I mean, we respect the dealership for what they do.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Yeah. And we will turn work to them just the same as they'll turn work to us.
Yeah.
We've got connections and friendships with all the other shops in town.
Yeah.
I've happened to work at a couple of them. I actually worked at the dealership just before I started here.
Yeah.
Because I got laid off out there after COVID.
Yeah.
At the proving grounds. And So I was their service manager for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
And great group of guys. I worked with some of the best guys, and I can say that for a lot of different jobs that I've had.
Yeah.
It becomes like when I was an instructor at MMI, it was a dream job I never knew I had the dream for until I did it. It was the same with working at the proving grounds. You're working on prototype stuff. It's not coming out for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and then you walk into a dealership a couple years later and you're like, oh,
that's so cool.
there it is.
What a cool feeling.
Yeah, it is. It just gave me goosebumps. Thinking about it, you know, and so it really was a neat job.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But this is always in the back of your head.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, this is the longevity of Harley as a brand. You know, they were known as the brand that you could buy for life.
Yeah.
You know, and
well, in a lot of shops, dealerships, depending on how big the dealership is or how big the city is that they're in, don't work on old bikes.
Yeah.
You know, and like our dealership here, 2002 is their cutoff. You know, and that might change. If something major changes for Harley and the parts get harder to find, then that's what's going to happen.
Later. Yeah.
Whereas we will
focus on
we're
sourcing
flexible.
these.
Well, we're flexible enough to be able to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The biggest part of it is like I said, it's the fellowship, man. It really is. And when you gain people's trust, and I know this over years because no matter what job I was doing at the time, I was always doing either work out of my garage, like you were saying, or side jobs. And it's really neat to see it all come together. You know, you'll hear about, you know, oh, so-and-so had a crash, you know, we're having a fundraiser for them.
Yeah.
Man, all of a sudden people just out of the woodworks show up.
Tight-knit crew, It is for sure. Like, and he's seen, you know, the guy that's behind the camera right now, he's worked with a lot of the bars and restaurants in the community for a long, long time. And I tell you, the biker community is just different. They're a family. It's the most crazy thing. You don't see that unless I guess you see like the Volkswagen people or the Airstream people. It's like a niche, but the biker community is a very, very like symbiotic group that like they work with each other, they help each other out. It's almost like they're like a branch of a family, you know, and it's really cool to see that.
You see, my wife knows if we're driving down the road and there's a bike pulled over, we are pulling over to see if it needs some help.
It's one of those unsets.
You know, and it does.
Yeah.
And I've done that many times. I mean, I've been driving my truck down the road and some guys broke down. Well, see if we can load it in the back of the truck. I'll take you where you need to go.
Yeah.
You know, I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
And so like I said, it is. And it pays forward. It always pays off.
Yeah. For sure. So what are the hours, days a week that you're ready to bring people in?
You're
Monday through Friday?
Monday through Saturday, 10
Monday
to 6.
through Saturday, 10 to 6. Website yet? Coming soon? Am I working on that?
Probably, yeah.
It's coming soon.
Yeah, it will be coming
So
soon.
for now, they can call, check your Facebook out.
Yep.
That's the best way to reach out, okay?
Yeah.
Shout out your phone number here, and then we'll put it on the screen.
I have to grab the pen that it's written on. Is that one?
Oh, there you go.
I don't call myself very often.
That's all right. I know, right?
It's 928-418-0558.
Perfect.
Yeah. Or come down in between 10 and 6 to 236 Beale Street on the corner of Beale and 3rd. Right by the theater, right across from the theater over there.
Perfect spot. Slow miles per hour nearby. Safe place to pull into if you got your bike that you're still driving, or?
The thing is you know, any business course or class I've ever taken, you know, location.
Yeah.
Right? This location is the location.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know,
you can't get any better than this.
Borders on Route 66 to one side and a main street of an old school town that is starting to be revived. And, so like I said, it's going to be interesting. And
then the whole I-11, they're putting in this huge amount of money into making it smoother for traffic to continue to flow and easier to get off. Like people always worry about when you divert traffic. You know what you're doing is you're actually just making it easier for the people that do need you to get to you when they need you.
You know,
so
they're putting in more off ramps, you know, and stuff up the road.
Yep.
The town's still growing, which is amazing. Because if you look at a town like Needles right now, you know, they might as well just roll it up.
That's right.
Well, they might as well roll it up. I mean, they didn't let any industry in for a long time. I worked there, so I knew the ins and outs. And where Kingman is the industrial complex is still growing. They're still building buildings out there. There's still big business coming in. So, like I said, it's not so bad.
Yeah. No, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for being part of Business Buzz. Ironside Cycles, Beale Street, Kingman, Arizona. You got Chris and Mike. You got a whole crew here. You're the head of the department service
yes, sir.
department. You're just running around making sure everybody's happy.
Best I can.
That's right. That's right. So thanks for being part of it. Anything that I didn't touch on that you want to make sure people know about? Anything you can think of?
Well, I think you covered all the bases.
Good.
Pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for being part of Business Buzz.
All right. Thank you
very much.
You're very welcome.